Hello, hello, and welcome to Fearless Fridays with Maryann. I am your host, Maryann Rivera-Donnet, known as the Fearless Living Coach and Career Reset Strategist. This podcast is for the woman needing inspiration, motivation, and empowerment as she steps into her purpose and power. Each week, through our special guests, our hope is that you will walk away ready to recommit to loving yourself a little bit more and step into your own truth. Our speakers, like the everyday woman, has experienced some type of hardship and have overcome adversity. Our speakers will speak directly to you and give you tips on how to step into your fabulousness as you create the life you were born to live, a life where you are free and happy. Are you ready? And we are live. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Fearless Fridays with Maryann. Today, I have a special guest, Ajoua, and she is going to be telling you a little bit about herself. And she is one phenomenal woman, and she is going to wow you. So let's pass it on and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you currently do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ajoua. I am owner of AJ Excursions, which is a travel agency. Yes, in this COVID pandemic, we still exist and we're still here. So I am the owner. I've been in business 6 years, going on 7, October 14th, 2014. And since then, I've been crawling, running, laying down, leaping, flying, all of the above in this crazy world of travel, especially in this last year. So that's who I am.
Awesome. So before you got into being a travel agent, what did you do before? And
So
what made you make the transition?
I've always been an educator. I've been in education since I'm over 20 years as an educator. So
Wow.
I started there as an educator, and I never, ever, 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 let me say this again. I never thought about, dreamed about, wanted, had any idea about being a business owner. This was a happenstance because of travel experiences that I had when I was leaving the country and having people not cater to people who look like me and not knowing information about people who look like me in other countries to make sure that my experience was a well-rounded experience, that I got to see people who look like me and not just seeing people who don't, and learning about them, that fostered the idea and forced me to say, I need to have an agency to provide and to give information to people who look like me that is not given.
That is so good. So you saw definitely a need, and that propelled you to take action.
It did. It was, I tell you a quick story. I went to my first time leaving the country. I went big, right? I went big. I left for 14 days by
Oh, wow.
myself, over 14 days, or no, 12 days or something like that. 12, 14 days. I lose track now. Out of the country, and I went to Paris and Italy.
Alone.
And I get to Paris and I did everything. I booked everything, did all my research, and I went to a travel agent. And the only thing they did for me was book my airfare and book my hotel and book my transfer to and from the airport. I did everything else. And so I get there, and by happenstance, I took a beautiful baking course, and I met this other Black girl that was by herself named Jennifer. And so she started telling me some other stuff about Paris that I didn't know. So I ended up doing Black Paris tour, and I found out about this whole other world of Paris. I found out about a whole neighborhoods of people who look like us.
Oh, wow.
I found out about a whole neighborhood of, you know, of African people that you feel like you're in the continent, right? Because that's how many dialects that you will hear, right? I found out about so much, about so many Americans that expat that moved to Paris, not just now, but back in the day because of mistreatment and everything. And I, I went to Josephine Baker Home. So I'm so excited. I learned all this information, and I came back and I was talking to my travel agent, and I was like, well, did you know this?
Nothing.
No. First of all, she had never been out of the country already. One, but I didn't thought that. But she had no information on this. None.
Mm.
Absolutely none. And
Wow.
so I booked again. I go back and I now experience more. And that's when I realized I started talking to other people who look like me, who use travel agents who didn't look like me and look like us. And they was like, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. Who? So that's
Wow,
how
that
it
is so
started.
good. That's interesting. I had never heard that about Paris, that there's a section like that.
It's Let me tell you, and when I tell people and I book my clients to go there and I get them over there, they send me a message. They're like, so there. I mean, you can
Wow.
go and see where James Baldwin used to write. You can go by
Mm.
Josephine Baker's home. You can go and see. There's so many expats that live there, that thrive there. You know what I'm saying? And then even to this day, you have a whole lot of Black Americans that's been living here since the 50s, 60s, 70s. They,
Wow.
I'm talking about you, and you meet them and you can find out about them. And no one, a lot of people don't know about this culture that they have, and it's phenomenal. So
Mm.
that was my first foray into wanting to wanting to make sure people like who look like me got to experience a cultural learning in other countries about people who look like us.
Yeah, that's so good. That is so good. So, my words for 2021 is all about transformative freedom.
Oh,
So, when you think about or when you hear the words transformative freedom, what does that mean to you?
transformative freedom is you're transforming who you are, where you are, what you are doing,
Yes.
right? How you are doing it. You're transforming it into another level of your freedom of what's best for you, or what looks best for you, or what works best for you. So you're taking what you have and
Yep.
you're just molding it. You're making it better. And sometimes you're making it more, or sometimes you're making it less. You're adding more or you're taking away, but you're taking that same that energy, that business, that job, the who you are, and you're just saying it needs to be transformed. Is It's not that it wasn't working. It's not that it was bad. It's you're transforming it to see what else you can do with it, how
Yes.
else you can make it, how else you can make it work, how can you make it better. That's transformative freedom. You're just checking in and saying, let me take what I have and moving it to another level.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, what has been one of your biggest obstacles that you've overcome, and what did the process look like for you?
Biggest obstacles. Um, Something I've never said this, but it's something that I'm starting to realize.
Mm.
I'm sort of a small fish in a big pond,
Mm.
right? There are groups that have way more clientele than I do. But I learned something this past year, and that's why I said you do the cycle of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in September, a lady, I run a Facebook group that has over 10,000 ladies
Mm.
that I organically grew over the last 4 years or so.
Okay.
I have over 10,000 ladies, and it's my group. I just added on more admin to just help me engage more, but at
Hmm.
one point it was just me.
Wow.
And so someone had hit me up in September asking could they advertise in my group for a travel conference that they were doing. And so I went and looked at who they had coming to the conference, all of that. And a big thing just hit me. You want to use you see my group as viable, right? To host and want to advertise. And then I go to your who's speaking, and it's a group. She's a millionaire.
Oh,
I
wow.
just ran into some of her clients with my group in Brazil.
Mm.
She had a group in Brazil at the same time I had a group in Brazil.
Oh,
We
wow.
were at the steps, and her group was looking at our t-shirts, saying how fly our t-shirts were. They were behind us to take their pictures on the steps, and we laughed and we said hi. And then later on that day, someone hits me up. They was like, "Yo, remember that group of Black people that we saw on the steps? That was this
So
group
awesome.
up it,
Mm.
right?" And I go on there and I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I love your pictures. It was so good seeing you all at the steps, because that's who I am. I love bigging up everybody."
Right.
And months later, they responded, was like, "Oh, thank you." And that's not it. It's the fact that when you holding your conference, this person, this group has been around for some years. I'm super proud and happy, as if I know the owner, right? And it's a
Mhm.
Black woman. So I'm super proud of her. Like, she's my friend and I know her. And she's been around for years. And I love that you had her speaking, but you didn't think to have me come and speak, considering I've only been doing this going on 3 years as a group leader. Look how many places I've taken a group to in the last 3 years.
Right.
This year, if COVID wouldn't have closed, I would have tore them down. We was in Brazil in February. We wasn't stopping until December. We had groups planned. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I say all that to say I'm a small fish. I'm not a millionaire with this lady.
Not
Um,
yet.
Not yet. But I'm doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like big groups. My groups are like 15, and I'm the 15th or 16th. And they're coming from the islands, all over the country. I now have a lady coming from London that's going to meet us. My people come from all over.
Mm.
So I'm a small fish in a big pond, but I'm swimming nicely.
Yes.
So that is, my I say all that I'm realizing that, and I'm okay with being a small fish, but don't underestimate me.
That's awesome. That's
Don't
awesome.
underestimate me.
That's awesome. What would you say, as far as as it relates to women, what are your thoughts on why we become stuck and sometimes experience unfulfillment in our lives?
Fear,
Mm.
fear, fear is very debilitating.
Yes, it
Fear
is.
robs us of opportunity every day, all day. Um, I do a talk about stop waiting. We are constantly in the, how do I put it? We are constantly in the, I'm going to wait until my husband retires. I'm going to wait until my daughter graduates from high school. I'm going to wait until I get this promotion. I'm going to wait until I finish reading this book. I'm going to wait until I have X amount of dollars. And it's wrapped in fear because you keep putting these limitations on yourself
Hmm.
about
Right.
waiting for this person, waiting for this. And you look around and you still haven't done it
Right.
because you're so afraid that the unknown is scary, right? It's
Right.
super scary of unknown.
It
And
is.
you end up holding yourself back. You hold yourself, you keep yourself safe because this is safety. You know, I can wait until my husband, retire before we take our cruise around the world, right? But y'all could have been taking 5 cruises a year, which is like, but what, but, but is that fear, is that waiting that holds us back and holds us captive?
What do you think we're afraid of? What's the fear? Is it fear of the unknown, fear of the expectations?
Of the unknown, fear of what you learn, fear of what it reveals. Um, I tell everyone, especially people who get ready to travel for the first time alone, get ready.
Yeah.
You will not return the same person that you left as you
Mm.
left. When I've always traveled alone. I've been traveling alone. If anyone goes on my website, they can see my talk that I've been traveling alone since I was 4 years old.
Mm.
Traveling,
Wow.
okay? Like today, if my mother did what she did back then, my mother be up under a jail, right? Because I've been traveling alone, flying across country by the time I was 13 by myself, right?
Mm.
So that wasn't it. When I left to go out of the country for the first time alone, I I was so boastful. I was like, I got this. This is nothing, right? I'm an introvert, right? I'm an extrovert around people I'm comfortable with, or when I have to turn it on.
Mm.
When I with my group, I'm an extrovert until I go to my hotel room at night and decompress and turn inwards. So while I was gone, it was just me. I don't
Mm.
speak French. I don't speak Italian. I had to rely on me. And what I mean by that is I had to make myself talk. So if I saw you in a cafe, you came by yourself, I would make myself, hi, how are you? Are you eating alone? Would you like to join me? Because I'm sitting here. I had to step outside of me. I had to rely on me. There was no one there to protect me, right? So I had to have my wits about me at all times. I've been in New York City how many times by myself? So it's the same, it's just magnified, right?
Right.
So you learn a lot about yourself. And I tell people that. And so when you stop waiting, when you stop that fear, change is going to happen. Because
Whew.
when you challenge that fear, I'm
Right.
afraid of heights. I'm afraid of heights. But I've done more things being afraid of heights. And each time, look at what I saw, look at what I was able to accomplish. So that is fearful because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You can't control it. So you come down and you come back and you're a different person because you've grown. And that scares a lot of people. That's debilitating because you don't know what to expect. You have no control over it.
So, what piece of advice would you give to our listeners, particularly women, who are ready to step into their truth and they're not sure how to start, what to do? What piece of advice would you have for them?
Look in the mirror and
Mm.
speak truth because we are our own worst enemy.
We are, yes.
We are our own worst enemy. So to step into your truth, you have to believe your truth. You have to acknowledge your truth. You have to look in the mirror and say, this is what it is. Because your truth is not Maryann saying you're beautiful. Because Maryann can tell me every day, all day, 365 days that I'm beautiful.
Right.
I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to believe you.
Mm.
Your truth is looking in the mirror. Now, Maryann, you're speaking truth to me because you're my friend and you're my counselor and you're speaking direct truth. But until I acknowledge and accept it as truth,
Right.
it doesn't matter. So when you get
Mm.
in front of that mirror, and the mirror doesn't actually have to be a real mirror, but when you
Mm.
get and you start speaking over you in truthful manner, things change because now you have to use it, you have to mold it, you have to accept it. And walking in your truth, you lose things. You lose friends, you lose jobs that you are comfortable in, you lose sometimes cities that you lived in.
Yeah.
You understand, and but I'm serious, you
Right.
lose things also in your truth because you could have working at this job for 10 years and your job really is somewhere else. That is your truth. So now you have to let go of everything that you're comfortable with. Your route to work every day that you had down pat for 10 years that you can get to like this, and you knew every shortcut. Now you go on the opposite side of town with all new people you don't know. That's scary. That's stepping into your truth because that's where you're supposed to be.
Right. Because when we step into our truth, and I think that's the key, it's our truth, not the truth that others have spoken into us that have become part of our identity because we've heard it so much and so
Yeah.
often, and it just penetrates that we begin to believe the lies.
And we do, and it's because it's easier. See, if
Oh no. All right, so we lost her for a few seconds, so hopefully she will be right back because this has definitely been going really, really good. So while we wait for her to come back on, hopefully soon, I just want you guys all to just hopefully be getting something from this and just know that where you currently are is not your final destination. If you have that yearning inside of you for something bigger, for something better, just grab a notebook and start writing down your thoughts. Write out what you hope to get out of life, what your goals are, whatever your current situation is. Make a plan for, the next, you know, 30, 60, 90 days. All right, we have her back, so we are going to add her back on, and she is back with us.
I am so sorry, I touched the button and it went from "Hey girl" to "Bye girl." So I apologize. I don't even know what I touched, and all of a sudden it just went like blank. So I apologize.
No, we were talking about that when we decide to step into our truth, we come to realize that what we thought was always true is actually what other people have spoken into us.
And what's so crazy is because it's easier to believe your truth for me,
You're right.
right? It's easier. You could tell me this is all you have, this is all you're going to be, whatever, right? And then you look around and you start realizing, I don't even like this.
Yeah.
I'm not even happy. And
Right.
that's really when you step into your truth, you also step into your own happiness,
Yes, you do.
right?
Yes.
Because you start owning your own happiness and you start realizing you haven't been happy. You're not happy. You're not satisfied. You are not being fed, right? Because your truth will start feeding you.
Right.
It'll feed you. And when I mean by feed you, as they say, spiritual feeding, I'm not
Right.
talking about food that you can go eat, but I'm talking about it feed your happiness. It'll feed your passion. It'll feed your desire for things, right? It'll feed your creativity. It'll free it will give you so many different things in your truth because you know who you stand in it.
Right.
You stand firm and you stand tall and you start looking and saying, I don't want that, but I want this.
Ooh,
I
yes.
don't I don't want to date, like when you stand in your truth, you learn who you are as a person, male or female. And as women, sometimes I tell you this. If anyone has ever met my mother, my mother is at my house before you see my mother. Okay. My mom has always been a heavyset woman, but I feel like I have something on my lips. Sorry. My mother has always been a heavyset woman, but she was loud, and everyone in Buffalo knew who my mother was.
Mm.
And so I thought I had to be like my mother, right? So I end up, most of my high school years, I was loud and you could hear me and whatever. I get to college and I realize I'm not loud, not a loud person, like and I've never been, but I started realizing who I was, right? Because
Mm.
if you ever look for me in high school, I'll be in my room reading a book, listening to music, right?
Yep.
But I thought I was this loud person. But in
Mm.
reality, my truth of who I am a person that you can find any night in her room, listening to music, reading a book. And if you take it up another notch, drinking a glass of wine,
Mm, yes.
right? But that's what I had to learn. That was my truth.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out my truth, that I'm an introvert. I cannot talk to people for a lot. And I tell everyone this: COVID should have never happened to someone like me, because I'm okay with being in the house. I'm okay not being around anyone. You understand what I'm saying? And
Right.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, people were like, oh, I'm miserable. Oh, I can't go. And I'm like, oh, sorry. You know, I've been in the house. So, but I say that, and I use that example as in stepping into your truth of who you are. I stepped into my truth even with travel. I've been traveling my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized this is a bit, yes, I have it as a business, but it's a huge passion. And it's a
Right.
passion to show the world who we are, not based off of YouTube, not based off of CNN, not based off of rap videos that they saw, not
Right.
based off of movies, right? Because a lot of these countries, they see us and they view us through YouTube videos, movies, and they
Mm.
think that's who we are. And we are far more. We are that in a bag of
A
chips
whole
and
lot
more,
more.
right?
Yes.
So I love when they meet, when I'm in these other countries, especially with my groups, or even when I'm by myself, and they meet us or me, and they're like, by the time we leave, they're like, I thought Black Americans, I thought Black Americans, I thought, like, I get that all the time.
Right.
I thought I knew, I thought this is what I thought,
Stereotypes.
right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
huge stereotypes, and they believe them. And then we come along and they're like, I thought, and I love that. But I also I want us to see the world and get out and step outside of what was taught to us, what
Right.
was, in school shown, what was indoctrinated, into us, especially when we go to Africa. Everyone, and I love it. Every time we go over to Africa, everyone's like, but I thought everyone over here was starving for, food and feed a child for, because everyone has this fallacy of that's Africa, because what do you see on TV all the time?
Let me tell you, I'm laughing so hard because I have to tell you this quick story. When my ex-husband is Ethiopian, and when I first met him and we started dating and he invited me to his aunt's house, he was like, oh, make sure your hands are clean, you're going to be, move your fingers around. And I'm like, why? He's like, because we eat with our hands. And I was like, what do you mean you eat with your hands? I was like, what kind of country do you come from? He was like, I'm Ethiopian. I was like, Ethiopian? And I was like, I thought you were Arabian. And I was like, I thought that Ethiopians are supposed to be like really dark and skinny. And he was like, that damn style, you Struthers, because remember those commercials from
Yep.
back in the day?
Yep. And
I was
that's
like, oh my
like
gosh, that
so
is
many.
so true.
It's so true. Like even when we, everybody, if you know me, you know how much I love going to Egypt, and I love Egypt. And so we was in
Mm,
a Yemen restaurant in Egypt. So we're eating, and my friend who does everything for me when I'm in Egypt, he eats a lot with his hands. Certain things like the breads and everything is
yep.
with your hands because you're dipping. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're looking at a table in front of us, right, of men eating. And I'm so nosy because I'm like, what are they eating? Like, what is over there? What are they eating? I need to know. And he didn't know. He's like, I don't know what they're eating. And he was like, they're not Egyptian.
Mm.
I said, how do you know? Like, you didn't talk to them. You don't. How do you know? And he said, because they're using their whole hand. They're
Mm.
using all their fingers. And he just used the Egyptian. And so now I'm like, every restaurant I go to, when it's time to like, especially when they have their bread, it's this bread that I love over there, that you break it and it's always you dip it in certain things or you pick up
Mm.
your meat with it, certain, dishes. And I was like, so he must be Egyptian because
Right.
he did with two fingers. And then I would see, someone do with all, like myself, I was grabbing with all my hand,
Mm-hmm.
dipping and grabbing. And I was like, so crazy. But it is, it's how we get on this topic. But I say on that though, when we first got to Africa, everyone was like, so everything they said was a lie.
Right.
They was like, so like you seeing like Mercedes Benz and Audis, and don't get me wrong, you also can in Egypt, you can be driving down the street with in a Mercedes, you can see a Mercedes Benz or Infinity or an Audi. You can see a truck that looked like it was one of the first trucks being ever built from 1920. You can see a kid on a donkey, and you can see a motorcycle with three people on it,
Mm-hmm.
all going the same
But
way,
the same
right?
way.
Going the same way. So you're like Infinity, a car that looked like from 1920, a,
And
a
a
boy on
donkey.
a donkey, a moped with like three people on it. Like, and but you see this, and everyone was like, so this is not what, no, it's not. But we
Mm.
have these images
Right.
programmed in our head of places, even China. I remember when I was there for over 2 weeks, and I thought really all Chinese men were short and little, and I kept being like, where he come from?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was in parts of China that there's not interracial marriages. Their
Right.
interracial is a Chinese and someone from Taiwan or something, like, you understand? That's
Right.
they're all Asian, right? And I'm like, gosh, that whole family of men is tall. And then I would see more, and it was really shocking because based off of what I saw on TV,
Right.
you know, based off of that, I thought one thing, like, people don't understand that when you go to China, these Chinese women they put us to shame. They
Mm.
go to parks in heels, dressed with full makeup. I'm talking about, I was like, this lady got on heels and with her umbrella because they don't want the sun on them. And she was just a walking. I was like, girl, I wish I would be walking in this park with some heels on. And I mean, she was just a strolling her little heart out. And I would see them going places and they'd be geared, makeup, everything. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, they got a fashion, they fashion sense is mind boggling, right?
It is.
But people don't know this.
Right.
So I like taking and showing people this is what you thought about us, and this is what we thought about you. Look at how we learn and see. So now we get to come back and you get to look at a movie, a book, or interview or whatever it is, and you get to be like, that's not real. That's not how they eat. That's not how they live. That's not what's going on there.
Mm.
And and you also get to watch a movie and you see a place you like, I walk down that street. I stayed at that hotel. I've been there, and it gives you such joy, and it gives you such.
Right.
It takes the book. It takes what you learned, what you've seen over the years, and what people have said, and it gives you a new perspective.
Mm.
So I love that.
That is so, so good. So many good nuggets there. So now that 2021 is upon us, what are you most looking forward to aside from COVID being gone?
COVID is never leaving, right? So we have to get ready for a new normal, however that looks. I look forward to the end of June, God willing, walking through JFK, going to Africa.
Oh, nice.
That's what I look forward to. I
That's
look
awesome.
forward to traveling and figuring out my new normal in travel, in international travel. How does it look? Even when I'm over in Africa with my mask on, I look forward to figuring out how I'm going to do this, be safe, be aware, and to share with other people this is what to anticipate. This is how I survived a plane ride this long, and so on and so forth. So I look forward to that. I look forward to learning and figuring out my new normal. I look forward
Awesome.
to it.
Awesome. Awesome. So what has been the most inspiring book that you have read?
As I if I turn my phone, as I can go like this, the books,
It's a lot of
right?
books.
Um, as I can show you books. So I'm going to, you know what, I'm gonna have to go with this one because it's the first thing that popped in my head. So, and it's always the book I talk about, so it must be it. J. California, J. California Cooper Family.
Mm.
Um, is a book she wrote about a slave that was sleeping with her master. He went and got married, and her and his wife, pregnant at the same time, had the baby within days of each other. The wife
Wow.
went into postpartum. The slave ended up taking care of the baby. And I'm only going to tell you this part, and you got to read the rest. She took the baby. The slave took her baby, the one that she had by her master. She burnt with a cigar a scar on his hip, and she put the same mark on hers to look like a birthmark. When the mother was well enough and wanted her son back, she gave the mother her son, and she kept the other son.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a must read.
You have to read and
Because
once
now
you
I want to
read
know what happened.
it, the moral of the story is you never know who is your family.
Mm.
You never we as Black Americans who have been sold, who were families were sold into slavery. And why you ain't tell me the phone was mine was looking up my nose?
Oh, you're fine.
Um, we never we were sold so much that who is to say the man you met wasn't from your brother's line? Gotta read. That is one of the most powerful stories. And I tell you this, I'm an avid reader. If you saw, I gave away
Mm.
boxes and boxes of books because in my head I was gonna have this house filled with a library, and I
Mm.
didn't have anywhere to put these books, so I end up just giving them away. And I kept my most treasured ones.
Okay.
Um, I used to go to Wad. My mother used to take me to Walden Books. Yes, I'm dating myself. And my mother used to buy me books every weekend. We didn't go to the
Mm.
library. We got hardback. We wanted hardback. We didn't want paper. First editions if possible. So I was in Walden Books. There was nothing out for me to read. I think I just read all of Terry McMillan's
Okay.
books. So I was desperate for something to read. And this black policewoman in Buffalo came. I was looking and looking, and she hands me Jay California's book.
Wow.
She's like, "You have to read this book." She bought the book for me. I came back the next week. I bought the rest of her books.
Wow. So
So
I'll definitely be getting the exact name and everything so I can put it on the show notes to
yes,
remind myself and our readers, because I definitely want to grab a copy of that.
yes,
So we know that you are a travel agent, and I also know that you are an author.
yes.
So you have an awesome journal out, a travel journal. So we need our listeners to hop on and get connected. So where can our listeners grab a copy of that journal and learn more about you and book some flights?
So you can go to ajexcursions.com. Is under the shop. I have a travel journal out, which and so let me. I'm going to say this because a lot of people have been asking. Well, what if I don't have any international travels coming up, or what if I'm not traveling until next year? It's perfect because you use this book to do your research.
Mm,
Like I told you, I run a group of 10,000 ladies. So if you're not in my group, you come and join my group, and you can find out my group on the website, right? And you put in my group who can recommend hotels or a place to stay, place to eat in Georgia, Atlanta, Italy, just wherever you're thinking about. And you literally will get information, right? And you
right,
put it in your book. You put it in your journal, right? So now you have hotels or restaurants. So when you're booking and putting your trip together, or while you there, you like, wait a minute. They told me to go eat at Maryann's. They told me to go shopping at AJ Excursions. They told me to go shopping at Maryann's store after I eat there. You understand? And you
right,
already have it in your book, so you already know the address and everything. Don't if it doesn't matter if you stay in the States, in America, or if you go abroad, right? You still can use your journal. So don't look at it like, well, I'm not traveling yet. You're going to, so you can use it also to do your research. And they may say, well, when you get there, call Maryann when you in Florida, because what? She can
right.
show you around. So you put her name in there, and so you go to that section, be like, oh, here's the number. I can call her,
I love it.
right? So that's what. So
Awesome.
it's not just for when it. Yes, it's also when you're gone. And Maryann introduced you to Lisa. You put Lisa information in there, and you put, I met Lisa in this city, and this is where whatever. So if I come to you and be like, wait a minute, you just went to Florida last year or last month, give me some recommendations. You're gonna be like, girl, just go get my journal. Because in my journal, it tells you where to go, who to go talk to, where to go stay. That's for the journal. And then I also wrote a book about 19 lessons from my grandmother.
Mm,
And there are lessons that I used to think everyone was given these lessons, right? But everyone wasn't. And Ebony Nicole Smith, you already know her.
yep.
She, when I was talking to her about the book, I only had 9 or 10 lessons, and she challenged me to come up with 20, and I
She's good
came
with
up with
that.
19, right? And after I did the 19, and the book is out, I was driving to Buffalo yesterday, going home because I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I thought of a lesson that I didn't put in there. That
Mm.
black dials matter. So it might be a
New
part
book
two
coming
to this
out.
book. So the
New
book,
book.
both of them are out, and they're on my website for pre-sale. They pre-sale ends February 15th, and they ship out the following week or so. Within 10 days, they will be shipped out. And the journal is paperback, is not thick, is paperback, so you can put in your bag and carry, and is bendable. So If you have your crossbody on when you're traveling, is in your crossbody, so you can just hurry up and on your ride, to the excursion or to the airport, grab it and write in it. And the book is thin, but it also asks you questions after each lesson, just tying in the lesson to something that you learned. Maybe you learned it in a different way, they worded it different, and how and why you would share it with someone else. Because one of the things I learned, that a lot of young girls are not being taught these lessons.
Right.
And I wanted it to remind us that someone came and taught us these lessons, and we're not passing them on.
Right.
So pass them on, discuss them. And even if it's not a young girl, there's older women who also want to learn these lessons, right? So I did both of those. I have those out. And then I have adult coloring book coming out. Pray for me. And I have a children's book coming out based off the adult coloring book. So
I
those
love
two
it.
will be coming out April, May, June.
Okay. Awesome. Sounds great. So as we get ready to wrap up, a question that I like to end with that I ask all my guests is, when you hear fearless living, what does that mean to you?
Freedom. Because when you live fearlessly, you tackle your fear. And that's freedom, baby.
Yes.
There's nothing like being afraid and going forth, even in your fear.
I love
That's what
it.
it is.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so, so much for spending
Thank
time with
you.
us.
Thank
This
you
has
for
been
having me.
amazing.
I appreciate it. And I wish you abundance rather in 2021. I wish you nothing but happiness, goodness, joy, love, peace, prosperity, all of that for 2021. I want you to make 2021 what you need it to be and how you need it to be. That's what I wish
Awesome.
for you and your listeners. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful, amazing year.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, this has been another episode of Fearless Fridays with Maryann. We hope that you truly enjoyed this episode. As always, make sure to subscribe, share, leave a comment, and remember that you are fearless, you are fabulous, you are a priority, and you matter. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that podcast was beneficial to you. Be sure to click on the subscribe button, leave us a comment, and share. We look forward to connecting with you at our website, MaryanriveraDannert.com, or you can find us on Facebook at the Fearless Living Coach page. Remember that you are fearless and fabulous, you are a priority, and you matter. Until next time.